Welcome to Family Awareness from Noor Ashark TV. Since our talk show relates all the subjects we discuss between the West and the East. Today's talk show is about families who travel from a country to another country in order to live in a good way, or they think they live in a better way. Those who have the power and those who see that they can live in another country or another place on the earth of a mission they have. We will have Professor and Pastor Lyall Armstrong with us. Lyall Armstrong, welcome to Family Awareness Talk Show. You have been in Lebanon for almost 20 years now. You are a history professor and you are also a pastor of a church. You know, these days that people are trying to move from Lebanon to live in another area, they think that they're going to have a better life. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, you have decided to come to the Middle East. You know, moving from Kansas City to come to the Middle East, for me as a Lebanese, it's a really tough decision. That means you have a very big mission. It's not only that you for yourself, you have decided to come to Lebanon. You have decided to come with your family. Can you tell us about how you made this decision and how you started this a new trip of life?
Certainly. Well, first, thank you for having me on today. It was a big decision. I think anytime someone moves or takes his family or her family from one country to another, there needs to be some compelling reason in order to do that. And for us, it was a strong conviction that we have an obligation to share the message of Jesus Christ, which is essentially to love God and to love our neighbors. And as we tried to find where we could do that most effectively, one region that kept coming back to us was the Middle East. Lebanon in particular, because Lebanon has a long history of Christian witness going all the way back to the New Testament. So there was something, as you mentioned, I'm a history professor, there was something in the history of Lebanon that attracted us. Also, I'm very much interested in the relationship between different religious faiths. And so Lebanon provides a great forum, a great environment to see how Christianity and Islam, for instance, intersect with one another and have related to one another for centuries now. And so it was a combination of these factors of my own interest in history, but most importantly, the driving force was that we want to be able to share the message of Jesus Christ. And the only way that we can truly love God and love others is if we allow Jesus to transform us and change us. And we wanted to work with Lebanese Christians in spreading that message.
That's good news. It's really good and encouraging others who are willing to come to Lebanon. But you know, there's the diversity between the United States, the life you have been raised, you know, your father and your family, your mother, and the way you have been raised. I'm sure that's totally different from how we raise our children in Lebanon. And since you come to Lebanon, you got mixed so fast in the Lebanese community, especially because you are very good in Arabic and in the Lebanese Arabic, you and your wife. So this mix, I'm sure that, and the knowledge of Arabic that you had helped you, but how could you overcome some culture shocks, and what were the culture shocks during these 20 years?
Certainly there have been many. Every transition, no matter where you go, brings with it changes. I think several of the culture shocks that we faced when we came here were some of the same things that the Lebanese society was struggling with themselves. For instance, we moved here in 1999, and the cleanliness of the country, of course, not too far coming out of the problems of the war period. And so that was an issue, but that wasn't simply something that we were struggling with. That was something that the Lebanese themselves were struggling with. I think maybe the most difficult thing for us as when we came, and we had 2 small children when we first arrived, and we've had 2 since we've been here. I think one of the biggest challenges is finding ways to take care of and entertain our children. And we are not any different than the Lebanese. All of our Lebanese friends who had children of the same age, one of the constant questions we had is, what are we going to do to try to entertain our kids? So I think those are issues. However, I think sometimes we look at culture shock and we look at it negatively. There are some positive aspects to culture shock. We could go someplace else and be exposed to ways of doing things that we may not have done it in our own country, but those are good things. Let me give you a great example here in Lebanon, and that is the hospitality that the Lebanese have. When we came here, we were not accustomed to the great generosity and hospitality that is shown here in Lebanon. And it has really transformed us. It has changed us. It has made us have a different perspective even on our own culture in the United States. Now, as you said, I've been here for 20 years. My children are all grown. Some of them are back living in the United States. And the thing that they point out the most that they miss about Lebanon is the connection we have here with others. And the hospitality, the generosity, the willingness to care for one another and give to one another. And they are recognizing in the United States that that is not as common as they found here. So yes, there's been some challenges in moving here. However, we've also seen some very good things that have changed us for the better, and we are grateful for that. The good things, in fact, outweigh the bad.
You know, when you go from Beirut to the south, for me as a Lebanese, I feel like I'm meeting different people, different traditions. And the same happens when you go to the north, when you go to Akkar or to Psharri or to Bika. You know, in a very small country, you feel that you are moving to another country. How much this has given you good things inside you that, you know, I go to different, for example, like in AUB where you live now, or in Hamra, most of the people speak in English. When you go to the south, people speak only in Arabic.
Yes, and that's why I need to get back to the south and to the north and out of AUB more, because all of that work that you said we did in the beginning of our lives here in learning Arabic, we feel like we're getting weaker the more we spend time with those who speak English. But again, this is one of the positive aspects of life here. We love being invited to people's villages and getting different experiences of what life in Lebanon is like, and meeting different generations. As a university professor, of course, most of the people I'm around is the younger generation, and that's good. It keeps me young. However, the older generation that doesn't have the same, that doesn't come to the city as often, provides for us several advantages, and I enjoy being in that environment. So the village environment, getting out of Beirut, is good. I need to do it more and benefit from that. So yes, you're right. Those are good experiences for us and help us to understand the diversity even within one culture.
Yeah, in a very small country.
Right.
Actually, you know, when you travel to another country and you see people from different nationalities, for example, and they have kids, you feel that those kids are related to the place where they are born. How much could you manage it that your children are born in Lebanon, but their heart is with the United States, the place where you have been raised and your wife has been raised too?
Well, I might correct you on that. Okay, you may be able to say that my heart and my wife's heart is in the United States because we were raised there, but I would even challenge that, but that would make sense because we were born there. Our kids were raised here, and if you were to ask my children where their heart is, where their friends are, what the place they feel most comfortable, it is here. And so as they've transitioned back to the United States, they have found themselves going under a new type of culture shock. It's something that those who live abroad, those who study this phenomenon, they're called third culture kids, which means they don't have any particular culture, not the first that they were born in or the second that they were raised in. It's some type of combination of the two. And I think the challenge as parents who want to raise their kids in a different culture is to help them understand the positive aspects that can be found in both. and that when these are merged together in one person, it actually makes them a stronger person. And we've seen that in many ways in our own kids. One of my older sons, who's in university in the United States, is currently with some of his Lebanese friends. So even while he's there, Lebanese friends who graduated from the same school are studying in university in the US, and they've met up together. So when he wants to feel like he's at home, he seeks out his Lebanese friends, not necessarily those new friends that he's made there.
Right.
So it's a combination of all of it, and this is a good thing.
You know, once I was watching on CNBC, Hadley Gamble, the anchor, senior anchor. So she was saying, you know, through her experience in visiting Lebanon, and she has many friends who are from Lebanon, she said, I hold Lebanon close to my heart. That reminded me of when I talked to your children, Nathaniel, Wesley, and Luke, when they said they want to study outside and they want to come back to Lebanon for the vacation. So I have known from them that they have they have Lebanon close to their hearts. So how much have you worked on impacted your love to Lebanon to your children?
It hasn't been that difficult. I think because they were raised here and their friends are from here, it has become natural. Where one's friends are is in an important part of where one's heart is. And so I think it's been relatively easy. One thing, if we could say that anything that my wife and I have done which to contribute to that, is to help them see the good things that are coming out of their life by living outside of the United States. Part of that is, for instance, even learning, I shouldn't say even, but learning Arabic. Yeah. This is a huge advantage for them. So it's a practical tool, but it provides for them many opportunities in the future. So I think it's important. It comes down to the whole family having a proper perspective on what they're doing and why they're doing that thing. And if we can convey that to our kids, that we are trying to serve God first and trying to love our neighbors no matter who they are, I think that helps them wherever they go. And so as a father, I try to set that environment in the house. They run with it because this is their home.
Okay, so I have a question here. I've written it down because I feel that, you know, every father must be aware of that. In case you have been asked by one of your children to walk on your pace, on same pace, in other words, would you encourage your children to live the same experience you have already had?
Certainly.
Why?
First off, they should live a life, and not that I've always done it well. So when you say walk in my footsteps, sometimes my footsteps have not always been the right footsteps. But I've attempted, as my wife, to live a life that brings honor and glory to God. And I would encourage them to do the same thing. And that principle applies no matter where one is. I would even encourage them to consider living that outside of their own culture, which I think in some ways would be easy for them because they're already used to that. And the reason why I believe that's the case is because, it brings many advantages to us. It broadens our horizons. It helps us to interact with other people that are unlike ourselves. And I think if there's anything that we are recognizing now in our world, spreading rampantly throughout all regions of the world, is the struggle that people have in accepting one another's differences and seeing the good in these differences. And the more that we learn other cultures and the more that we live outside of what we are used to, the better we are in bridging those gaps. And so if my children decided to do that, I would support it entirely. And I think they would see the same benefits from it as we have, and hopefully build a greater sense of unity within our world and among cultures that people perceive from the outside as being different. But once you enter, you realize that we are all simply God's children trying to live a life that brings honor to Him and trying to do what is right, and hopefully steer people to the path that best fulfills that goal.
Okay, you know, during your pastoral life, you have received many people to come without an appointment at your house. Because, you know, when we are friends, we become like brothers and sisters. So it's the Lebanese culture. So if I have a problem, I can come to your house without an appointment. So how much did that bother your wife or your children? Because, you know, the customs that you follow in the United States, that I have taken an appointment in order to visit my friend.
Right.
While in Lebanon, I don't need an appointment.
Right. Well, if we had time, if the interview was longer, I could tell you one story after another about that. I think it was more difficult in the early period when we first came, and that was because especially for my wife, because we had small children, and any mother who has small children understands that when guests come, the place is a little bit chaotic, kids are running around, it's not as ordered as you may want it to be. However, recognizing that we're not the only one in that situation, that if we do likewise to another friend of ours, they're in that situation, that helped temper this challenge. But yeah, certainly it is different. But several of my Lebanese friends who go to the United States, when they come back, they say, I miss the fact that people can just go to one another's house and be welcomed. So again, yeah, it is certainly different than what we are used to in the US or in the West in general. But those who come here and live here for a while, foreigners that we've talked to, this is one of the things that they point out that they appreciate about this culture, that we still have this ability to interact with one another. Now we found when you live in a city, in a large building, in an urban environment, sometimes you don't meet your neighbors as well as you would, say, if you're living in the village. So it is a strange phenomenon. However, we appreciate the openness that we have here. So you can come whenever you want to without an appointment.
Thank you. I know that. You know, being a pastor is also being a human. You know, because, you know, we are friends, we've been friends for a long time now. And I know that you have received many people at your house. The issue now is that you have been working as a professor for a long time. And I know you need to prepare a lot, and the challenges inside the class, since you teach very critical materials in Lebanon and you are an American. You know, your students look at you that you're American and you are teaching this material. And I myself know that you are expert in these materials more than any other professors of whom I know them, especially in the Arabic text. So this is all a burden on you. How much you want to tell people sometimes that I'm a human like you. You come to me and you cry. And sometimes from your inside, you need to cry.
That's a very insightful question. Yeah, I think that's important to understand where one's boundaries are and to do the best that one can in establishing those boundaries. And that goes back to boundaries for myself, boundaries for me and my wife, boundaries for me and my family. I think that has helped us in our longevity here in Lebanon and being able to stay for a long period of time. That's a challenge that ministers, that pastors have no matter where they are. The United States, many of my friends who are pastors in the United States have that same challenge. As you said, not all of them are also teaching university classes too, but I try to work into my schedule ways that I can do things that are for me. And I think that's important. I very much enjoy different types of athletic activities. So I tend to do those things, and that gives me an opportunity to kind of be on my own or with just a few people and try to recalibrate. So yes, it is a challenge. However, God gives grace, and that grace helps us to handle those situations and to persevere.
You know, many Lebanese families struggle these days from the economic situation, and they are willing to leave Lebanon, which is a very painful step or like a decision to make. It's not to move, even for yourself. It's you know, I have lived the moment when you go to the airport to go at least for like to work like for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. you live the moment because you're going to leave your mother and your father. So many people now, I see them in my office, they come, new couples, engaged or married couples, or they have children. So they lost hopes in Lebanon. Like me, I honestly, I lost hope for the current situation. I lost hope. So what do you think, as a pastor, you want to advise people who see the grass on the other side greenish?
Right. Don't lose hope. God's with us. God provides hope. God provides perspective. But that doesn't mean in not losing hope that you decide, I must stay. Sometimes what's best for the couple or for the family is to look for other opportunities. It's a very tough decision, and to try to condense it down to a few bits of advice for each individual or each family that's dealing with several issues would be very complicated. However, what I would say is that those families that choose to do that, remember that they must be in it together, that they must be unified. If it's just a couple, a husband and a wife, that they must be going and understand why they're going, what their mission is, what their objective is, and that most importantly, their family, their marriage, their family is more important than anything else. So if they can keep that perspective, then hopefully they could go someplace and continue to be a strong unit. Don't lose hope. Working these 20 years here, I've seen that God preserves and helps and continues to give us hope. So trust in Him, do what you believe is right, and stay close to one another. And I think that helps us to overcome challenges, even though they're very serious. The economic challenges are very serious. We can't downplay those. But I think with that perspective, it will help us overcome some of those things.
Amen. You and your wife, Mrs. April Armstrong, have found many challenges in Lebanon, like for instance, moving from a house to another, and now you live at AUB. So there are some difficulties usually, whether Lebanese or foreigners encounter, especially in Lebanon. So really people think that they are going to have a better life without problems, insurance, medical insurance, life insurance, and many other things. They can take their children to the hospital and they don't have to pay money if they're going to the emergency, unlike the situations in Lebanon. So you have showed us during the time we're discussing that Lebanon is a very nice country, and of course I love my country. I'm very patriot, if you want to say so. And you showed us the green side of Lebanon. Although you had many obstacles, but because you are a pastor, you always say the positive sides, and you always give encouragement to people. What is your last advice to both people who like to come to Lebanon and live in Lebanon and work as pastors or work at universities or in other jobs, and the people, the Lebanese people who want to move to another country, United States or another country in the West?
I would say those who are coming here understand what you're coming for. So for us, we came with a particular mission. Others are coming simply because they're coming here to work. Factor into that what you're trying to achieve while you are here. For us, we came knowing that we wanted to be here for a long time, so we invested a lot of time, and you helped immensely in learning Arabic, for instance, which makes the transition and makes our involvement, engagement with the culture much stronger. But I would say to those who are coming, be open-minded. Realize that there are going to be things that are a challenge, but instead of, as you noted, instead of always trying to look at the negative, and we do this is something natural we do as humans in our interactions with one another. Unfortunately, we tend to look at the negative. But instead of looking at the negative, readjust one's perspective and look at those things in the culture that are positive, that will help you to stay here, that will help you to see the things you can gain from the experience. for those Lebanese who are going abroad, learn from other Lebanese who have already gone before, because I'm not the first person to say this, that when you go someplace, the West is not the pot of gold. The United States is not a pot of gold. It has several other problems, and I know many Lebanese who've traveled and then have come back because they said the challenges that I faced there, the social challenges, being away from family, some of the things we've already mentioned in our interview, and that it requires a lot of work and a lot of investment to make it financially there too. So it's not easy anywhere. Life's not easy anywhere. And I think that's the principle we need to remember. And you're right, we try to look at the positive, because that is the thing that Jesus has given us. He's given us something positive. He's given us life. He's given us hope. And if we spend our lives looking at the negative and the challenges, we will only perpetuate a depression and an anxiety that is not beneficial for us. So those who are going abroad, even still, Lebanese that are going, recognize that life is not going to be easy there, and they're going to miss things here. But if they understand that that's what's best for their family, then do what is best for your family, that they would grow, most importantly, that they would grow and honor God in that decision. So I hope that we will find Lebanese not traveling. I hope that we will find the situation here improving, and that we can all benefit from that. And in the meantime, let us trust in the Lord and let Him guide us to what He wants from us.
Thank you so much, Professor Armstrong, for joining us in this episode, which is a very important topic when we make decision to move from our country to another country, which is a very vital part of our lives. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching us.